few benefits to having IBD is having access to Cornell's elite program, which pairs Cornell University med students with current patients at the Jill Roberts IBD Center. Now, I love this program because it not only does it help the med students get some kind of real world exposure to patients and help create a strong kind of personal doctor patient relationship, but it's also let me meet some really wickedly smart and wickedly talented and just awesome guys that have influenced me in my life, such as my friend Dan and today's podcast guest, Aleem Khan. Aleem is like a powerhouse encyclopedia of just everything you could ever want about medicine and research. In this episode, he talks about his undergraduate research project where he and his team extracted a cancer treating compound from coral, like just ocean coral. That's how insane this guy is. It's like some Batman level stuff. He also gives his opinions on the pharmaceutical industry and how one should incorporate both nature and medicine in a holistic approach to like treating yourself. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little off my element because I had just woken up, but Aleem did a fantastic job. That guy is so super smart. I can't wait to have him back on again as a guest. I just love it. I just love hearing him lecture. Like if he was a professor at my class, I would actually go to class. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy Gutboost podcast episode 2 with Aleem Khan. Thank you and enjoy. Good, good. Nice flag in the background, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's I got 3. Yeah.
Is that I forget. I'm so sorry, but you're Bengali, right?
No,
Damn it.
that's Pakistan,
the Paki
America,
flag.
and Nicaragua.
Nicaragua. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. How's it been?
Pretty good. Pretty good. How you been?
I'm good. Yeah, I just woke up actually, so.
That's sleeping in this morning. I see.
I had a bit of a late night. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Huh? How's your IBD been going?
It's actually been going pretty well. Like, I'm like symptom free, basically right now. So I mean, I'm having an appointment on the 15th on Tuesday. So I don't know if
Right.
you like want to stop by with like the elite program. I'm not sure if you're
Yeah.
still doing that, but yeah, that's just when I'm having it. It's like really early in the morning though, so like I won't blame you if you don't like show up.
Yeah. I haven't actually. You said it was. I saw that you got the appointment for the 15th. I will see because yours is at 8 a.m. or 8:30. I think.
Yeah,
right?
it's like ridiculously early. Yeah, so.
Yeah, it's like 8:30. So I'll see if I could get out. Yeah.
Also, I don't get Benadryl like anymore with my infusions. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
So you're awake now.
yeah, I'm not gonna be like a drowsy, disgusted mess. So like you could come by like later and I'll be coherent.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Unless you enjoyed the Benadryl. I
No,
remember you were looking forward to it last time.
I did in the beginning because like when I was like a huge stoner, like I just enjoyed the fact that I was like also getting, but like it just got kind of like too of like overwhelming for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't ask for it anymore. Yeah.
Well, it's good you could get it on request.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Some states
Yeah.
get legal
You change
pot.
your
I
mind.
get legal Benadryl.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
So,
like, what's good with your current like research? How has that been going? Like, I remember you talking about your something with like you were working with THC. Am I correct?
that
while
was
back?
not research specifically. That was sort of a side project.
Oh, okay.
Me and a couple guys from the lab, we sort of got together and said, let's try this. And it's not something that's necessarily not already been done before. So it wasn't exactly research per se.
Mm-hmm.
So we like a group of so there were multiple projects going on in that lab at the time. That is not my current research. That was from my undergrad. It started off. It was a marine natural product isolation lab. So what that means is we went out to coral reefs and gathered samples from random, like sea flora. So corals, sponges, and we would bring it back to the lab and extract it, separate their constituent compounds, and see if any
How would you extract it?
were active. Usually for the purposes of like chemotherapy, a lot of these were really targeted towards cancer drugs. I don't know how well common knowledge it is, but one of the first cancer drugs, the very first chemo drug, was actually done the same way, but instead of using marine, it was some tree in China. I can't remember the name, and that was it was the bark of the biloba tree, I think, and that was the very first chemo drug. So that is actually how almost all drugs are derived. And then big pharma comes around and they'll just change a thing here or there on the molecule and market it. So the difference between Plavix and I can't. I'm really slipping my mind, but like other drugs on the market is literally like two portions of the molecule. You know,
But why that molecule change? Is it like for patenting reasons or?
patenting, yeah. So there's actually like a big hoopla about drug patenting laws as far as how different does the molecule need to be before you can consider it a different molecule. And also for things that are naturally occurring, how exactly ethical and legal is it to patent it? If you separated a compound from a naturally occurring tree in Central Park or in the middle of the woods, you don't own that compound. That's just a naturally occurring compound. That's like saying that you can patent nitrogen and you own 70% of the air. You know, um, so it's a bit of a gray area legally as far as the patenting. That's one reason, and also you could actually change some of the effects of the compound. A lot of compounds. So, for example, another lab that I was in my undergrad, I was pretty much there was a known compound that we had made in the lab before that was supposed to be good for leukemia. But one problem was it was a bit too active and we were killing too many healthy cells. So my job when I came into the lab was A, find a new way to make the drug, and B, or like a new, more efficient way to make the drug, and B, change things on the drug to make it less targeted towards healthy drugs, make it more specific towards cancerous or cancer cells. Sorry, not drugs.
That's fascinating. And does the change of the molecule ever like affect the efficacy of the actual treatment? Like make it worse?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So how can I put this? So I'll give you actually like a real world example. Let me look at my handy dandy research folder here. So the difference between different like vasodilators, for example, it's really well known. And for treatment of like a heart rate, high blood pressure, you know, uh, there's only a single change between any of these drugs, really,
Mm-hmm.
when they first started out, and it was they added a single methyl group to one carbon. And by adding a single methyl group, the more methylated it was, the more potent it was. And the more potent meaning like so we originally like do you know what epinephrine is?
Yeah.
Epinephrine, sort of like that.
That's
Epinephrine,
the
it
brain chemical.
constricts your vessels. What?
Is that in your brain? Because it's like norepinephrine and epinephrine, right? Those are the two.
Norepinephrine is pretty much the precursor to epinephrine. Technically, norepinephrine it stimulates the production of epinephrine. Epinephrine, in other words, is adrenaline
Yeah.
secreted from your adrenal glands. Your brain does stimulate, but yeah, norepinephrine is less potent than epinephrine directly when you give it as a drug.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in pretty much every case, yeah. So the difference between norepinephrine, which is weaker than epinephrine, is one methyl group, and then they have isoproterenol, which was two more methyl groups added again to the same carbon, and it became a super potent drug, way too potent, in fact, and like no one uses it anymore, right? But again, that's pretty much just how pharmaceutical companies pursue
So they make it
research.
more potent to get the patent, and then they can't really sell it because it's too potent.
Yeah, yeah, but then they just change it around, and if they own the patent on the drug to begin with, then so the way the patenting law, at least to my knowledge, is you can own pretty much the rights to a structure, a specific structure, and then with some leeway, meaning you're allowed to mess with the structure a bit. So that's why there's always this gray area where if you come up with a molecule that's similar, it's really up to a lawyer to decide how different is the molecule. Is it different enough to not violate that patent law? So a lot of these patent law firms that are specific for pharmaceutical companies, some of these lawyers are actually also chemists. They have chemical engineering degrees and chemical
Yeah,
degrees.
yeah. Because to be a patent lawyer, you have to have a background in like in the science that you work for. Like my uncle, he's an engineer. He has a background in electrical engineering, but he's a patent lawyer, so he does like technological patents and stuff like that.
Exactly, yeah, because the average lawyer would look at a organic chemistry structure, and then they would probably not understand
Yeah, yeah.
what it means to be
So
different.
it's
But
good
yeah.
that they have that background at least. But I mean, like, I still feel like a lot of new medicines get left at the table because of all that patent bullshit.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That's the problem when you have like a sort of oligarchy on the market. Is a lot of people sort of get shoved to the wayside. It's unless it comes through. So, for example, just even patent law aside, FDA approval, right? How to get that through the different phasings. So there's four phases by which a drug can get approved for treatment, and each phase, each step of the way gets increasingly, just increasing cost. So unless you're, with the backing of a multi-billion-dollar corporation like any pharmaceutical company, it's really tough to get a drug on the market. And if you don't get a drug on the market, then what exactly are you doing in that market? Other than just doing the research. So really, because they have a monopoly on the funding, they have a monopoly on the research as well. Because no one is going to do the research without the payoff. Even in the labs that I was working in, we would discover the molecule, but at some point there would be a handoff, and the handoff would be, can we sell this to a company? The drug that I was doing for the leukemia drug, that one we were working pretty much. We were working for Eli Lilly, which is one of the big five or big four. I can't quite remember the number of monopolizing companies in the market. Eli Lilly is one of the big ones, and so we were pretty much their henchmen. in
They're
hindsight, yeah,
they're lackeys.
yeah.
So what happened to that drug that you isolated from that coral?
That one was actually so. I was working with a classmate of mine and a good friend who was finishing his dissertation, and that was actually his dissertation project was the coral drug. That one ended up being it was successful. It's currently being studied in the phasing, right? So we're outside of the discovery, and now we're in the application portion of the research. That drug, and it was specific for I can't remember which cancer, but I do remember very specifically that it was actually chemostatic or cytostatic as opposed to being cytotoxic. Just a quick refresher: cytotoxic drugs, as the name implies, they really kill the cancer. Those are the more hard-hitting chemo drugs, as opposed to cytostatic. What they do is they prevent cellular mitosis. So they prevent and some of them have specificity for cancer cells, prevent them from dividing,
Mm-hmm.
prevent cancer from spreading, and prevent tumor growth. So usually they'll give these to patients who have smaller tumors, and they'll give them a cytostatic drug long enough that they'll be able to resect the tumor. They'll keep them on the cytostatic or chemostatic drug long enough post-surgery to make sure that there's no recurrence and no metastasis. And so that's what that compound ended up being.
Cytostatic.
It was, yeah, yeah. And again, I can't remember the species, but like I said, a lot of this research is really just trial and error. So we didn't even know which species it was until after the fact.
So you guys
Really.
could have just brought back some random coral and it would have nothing inside it.
I'm sorry, you broke up there. What?
So you guys could have just brought back some like random coral and like it wouldn't have anything useful inside of it.
Could have and did. Yeah, there's plenty of cases where that is at the forefront of all this. Scientific discovery is a lot of failure, and involved in that failure is sort of the blind approach. The statins, for example. Do you know what statins are? They're
Statins?
probably the biggest thing on the market right now.
No
for
idea
the
what that
past
is.
10 years. Statins are being used to treat high cholesterol.
Okay.
Right. This is a I don't want to exaggerate, but I'm pretty sure it's like $1 trillion industry at this point.
Oh wow.
Insane amounts of money
I should
gone
pro-
into
I should
statins.
probably
The
Google it.
past
I'm gonna
what
Google it now because I feel very left out.
what
What a statin is? Is it STATEN?
TATIN
Okay.
S statins, right? Those are for pretty much just cholesterol treatment, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Now, the very first statin drug, it's actually a very interesting history if you look into it. The very first statin drug was developed simultaneously in two different parts of the world. And initially, it was discovered by some guy in Japan who was studying, I think it was appetite in dogs. Or I think it was appetite in dogs. Again, I might be wrong. This is me off the top of my head. And he wrote, literally, as just like a footnote at the end of his research article saying, it didn't really change their appetites, but it also lowered their cholesterol significantly. And then he just left it. And so someone came around, like maybe 3 years, 5 years later, and said, "Wait, we could market this. This would be insane. Everyone has high cholesterol. This would be an amazing thing."
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and they came around and they patented it, even though it wasn't their molecule and they had nothing to do with discovering it. This guy, all the way in Japan, pretty much he got gypped for his research, and all from a little footnote. He didn't realize what he was sitting on.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, if he discovered this like panacea for cholesterol and he didn't capitalize on it, it's kind of like his error. But I mean, still, that's a tragic story for the guy that discovered it.
Yeah.
He was trying to suppress appetite in dogs.
I don't know if he was trying to suppress appetite. I remember it was a really like random study that he was doing.
Yeah, like what's the market for that?
Involved dogs. I can't remember, but I think it was. Was it Pfizer? Pfizer might have been the first company.
I know Pfizer.
Yeah.
I've heard of Pfizer before. They do a lot of they have a lot of the Crohn's drugs. Actually, I'm doing this thing, like I don't know if you know this company. It's called 23andMe. They do like DNA testing and stuff. They work with Pfizer in their labs.
Yeah.
But I mean, back to that story. I mean, I think one of the coolest quotes about like medicine or in science in general I ever heard was that most discoveries don't begin with a eureka. It's more like, that's funny.
Yeah. And a lot of people say that the biggest, the greatest inventor of all time. The name is actually accident, because that really is the case. Penicillin, for example, was just poor lab technique, or non-sterile conditions. And if it wasn't for that, it would probably have been a long time before we came around to antibiotics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the guy that made Splenda, like, wasn't trying to make Splenda. He just made something and thought it would taste sweet, and then he tasted it. It could have killed him, but it was.
Yeah,
sugar.
Another perfect example, and also pretty funny, Viagra. Viagra
Wasn't that a heart medication at first?
I'm sorry?
That was a heart medication at first, wasn't it?
Exactly, yeah. They were trying to prevent heart attacks, and instead they realized no effect whatsoever for heart disease, but definitely some other side effects that they have capitalized on.
Yeah, I mean, that's also like a very similar theme for like a lot of IBD drugs. Like Remicade, I think, was first used for something completely different. I mean, it was just for like psoriasis and like arthritis, but then they found that it also was effective for like 50% of people with Crohn's and colitis, so it became like a Crohn's colitis drug. Yeah. I mean, those drugs are weird because now what's happening with like any autoimmune disease is now it's just like because they just make like a new biologic every 2 years, and then like you go on that, you get treated for that, and then your body develops antibodies for it, and then you go on like the next biologic that your body doesn't like recognize, and then it's like this.
That really is the downside of all the biologic agents out. That it's inevitable. Your body's going to build up a tolerance to it. It's a lot harder for your body to build up resistance to, I guess, like things like methotrexate and prednisone, or like antibiotics. Even antibiotics, your body will build up a resistance to because they're smaller molecules. The biologic agents are massive molecules. When it's in your body recognizes it pretty quickly.
So that's why. So that's why you get the antibodies is because they're larger molecules.
Yeah, yeah. Like your body's not really going to develop antibodies for aspirin or acetaminophen, which is Tylenol,
Yeah.
or ibuprofen, which is Advil. These are relatively small molecules. Your body will not recognize it immediately as, oh, that's a bad thing, or that's a foreign thing. Really, your body doesn't know good or bad. It just self and not self. But things that are larger, proteins, for example, which a lot of these biologic agent
Yeah, they're
drugs,
like made
they're
from.
just
Yeah, like
they're really just monoclonal antibodies for
yeah,
they're all monoclonal antibodies, and
like
those are
Remicade is half
pretty heavy
animal
molecules.
protein, half rat protein, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, they're moving away from the rats now.
Are they?
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's
They're mostly either chimeric monoclonals, or I think some of them are even human derived. Yeah, like ZMAB as opposed to MUMAB, or MUMAB might be human in fact, but pretty much like now the newer ones that are coming out no longer mice derived.
that's a benefit.
It is a benefit.
No more
Actually,
mice.
that is a significant benefit considering it's going to increase the amount of time before tolerance is built.
Really,
Yeah,
that's good news.
yeah,
I mean, yeah, I've been on it for almost like 3.5 years now, so I wouldn't want to lose that.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. That's good. Uh, Very well then.
So, what else do you know about biologics? Like, do you know about their risk with developing lymphoma?
Yeah, I know that they do have like lymphoma malignancies. They could cause some skin cancers as well, non-melanoma skin cancers. Some of them would cause a lupus-like reaction or exacerbation of. Well, I mean, if you're older, someone in your case would not need to be worried about congestive heart failure, but like for Crohn's, for example, I'm sure you know. What are the common age ranges for Crohn's, for example?
I mean, I've always heard that people first get diagnosed from like 18 to 35. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, it's like 18 to 35, and then after 70.
After 70,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
It's a bimodal distribution. So after 70, a lot of them have like chronic congestive heart failure, and if the biologic agents, for whatever reason, for reasons I think are idiopathic, we don't really know, it exacerbates their heart failure, puts them at increased risk of lymphoma and other skin cancers. I personally, I mean, my personal theory is the use of these biologic agents, considering that they are immune modulatory, um, and they're meant to inhibit specific portions of your immune system. Really, the way that your body naturally keeps cancers in check, the average person probably has a few hundred or thousand cancer cells
Every day, right?
every day, probably on a daily basis, maybe like a few hundred, and they don't really become cancerous to the point that you get a tumor or that it's malignant because your immune system is constantly,
Flushing
removing
it.
these
Yeah.
cells. And so, as is the case with any sort of immunosuppressive or immunoregulatory treatment, the loss of this regulation would give you increased risk for certain cancers, or every cancer in all honesty, but depending on the drug, it's specific cancers. So, for example, infliximab and golimumab, golimumab. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, but those cause lymphoma malignancies and the skin cancers, as I said.
What's Globomab? Do you know what the brand name for that is? Is that like Humira?
I don't know. I really have trouble with brand names because there's a dime a dozen. In all
Yeah.
honesty,
Would that be an example of like them creating the
Simponi.
molecule?
It's called Simponi.
Simponi.
Simponi. Yeah.
That's like the new one, right? I've heard some people on forums talking about that. That's like not been around as long.
It was approved in 2013, and I would assume it's been on the market since then. So it's relatively new. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Remicade been around since the 90s as
Yeah.
like an arthritis drug, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Remicade is actually infliximab.
Yeah.
So it's actually same exact class actually as golimumab.
So is that an example of them changing the molecule for patent reasons?
Uh, So who was it? Who makes Remicade?
I
What's the
think
company
I,
behind it?
I think it's Abby. I'm not sure. Wait, let me use the trusty old googly. Remicade. Oh yeah, I think Humira is like Abby V, but Remicade is infliximab.
Oh, so it's owned by Janssen, formerly Centocor, and Golimumab is owned by Johnson and
Johnson
Johnson,
and Johnson.
which is
Yeah,
also Centocor. So they're actually the same company.
really.
Uh, I'm or unless Janssen separated, huh?
So
Oh
Johnson and
no,
Johnson
no,
make biologics.
Johnson and Johnson owns Janssen, which is funny because they have a similar sounding name, but that's besides the point. Yeah.
So they're owned by the same company.
Johnson and Johnson is the parent company of Centocor, and Centocor became Janssen. So I would assume this is my assumption that Johnson and Johnson still owns. Oh, yep, my assumption is right actually. Johnson and Johnson still is the parent company of Janssen.
So they own Remicade and Simponi.
They own Remicade and Simponi and these other ones. For the biologics, I actually don't know really at all how the patent law would affect it because these molecules are so much bigger. Adding like a single methyl group is nothing, to this as opposed to, the organic molecules that I was dealing with. That at best you're dealing with like, a carbon rings. Maybe I was working with a tricyclic carbon ring system. Came out to about 6 plus 5 plus 6, so 12. 17, and then plus another 6. Sorry, my math is really bad today. 23. So I was working with about a 30 carbon system, as opposed to these that, and 30 carbons, so 30 times 12, 360, so 360 molecular weight, as opposed to what is the average molecular weight of like an antibody is in the thousands, hundreds of thousands. They're in kilodaltons. So
Wow.
it's quite a big difference. These are massive molecules.
So they would have no trouble
you
just
need an injectable as opposed to you can't just take these as a pill.
yeah, because they would get destroyed in the stomach.
That is actually part of the reason. Another thing is you can't really make a pill form of these.
You can't.
You can't make a dried out antibody. I mean, a crystallized one maybe, but it wouldn't be active. Yeah, that's actually a portion of the reason. You could get things through the stomach without it being dissolved. That's like just the way you make the capsule. It's specifically actually because of the way the drug works and what's in the drug, which is the antibodies.
I've always heard in the brochures, like when I was first being like proposed Remicade, that they couldn't make a pill form because it would get destroyed in the stomach or something. But I didn't know that.
That's sort of a simplistic way to break it down.
That's a brochure like explanation, yeah. So they could just pump out like different variations of these biologics every few years by just adding like a few, minute methyl groups to it.
Yeah. I mean, so the FDA has a really sort of hypocritical way of approving these drugs. So if you want to put out a new drug, okay, it needs to show a significant improvement or difference from other drugs that are already on the market. There's no reason the FDA would approve a drug when there's another drug in the market that does exactly the same thing.
But what if their reasoning is that people, like, say that Johnson & Johnson comes out and says that people on Remicade are developing antibodies and they need a second thing to latch onto. Boom, here's Golimumab, even that patent.
That's the distinction. So what I was talking about is for new drugs on the market. But once a drug is already approved, the FDA sort of has an open door policy, meaning you could add small modifications to it and release a whole new thing.
Oh, so it won't need approval?
Yeah, with no need for secondary approval.
That's insane. Wow.
Yeah, but so it's really there's a very large barrier for entry for the initial drug. But once that initial drug is passed through, you have sort of sweeping powers over what you can do with it.
That's kind of scary.
That's how a lot of these companies, by the time their initial drug becomes generic, they come out with another one. For example, Adderall, very common. Treatment of ADD.
Yeah.
Compare that to after Adderall was finally, it reached the generic stage where, the generics flooded the market. Lo and behold, the same company released a similar drug called Vyvanse.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a slightly different formulation of the amphetamines in it. Adderall was like 90-10 DNL or L&D, I can't remember which is which for L-amphetamine, D-amphetamine, and Vyvanse was like a 50-50 split. All they did was just change the amounts of powder that they poured in each pill, from two different vials, in simple terms. And they had a new drug that they could charge, again, just as much for.
And college kids could sell on campus.
Huh?
And then college kids could sell it on campus.
Yeah, college kids now can sell both on campus.
Yeah.
I'm sure you see it plenty at yours.
Yeah, I mean, Vyvanse and like Adderall are huge on like any, and like Ritalin. I'm not sure if they're the same thing, right? Well, not the same.
Pretty much the same thing. Yeah, they're all just amphetamines.
Yeah, just study drugs.
Yeah. Sure. During finals week, they're pretty active.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even drink coffee that much, but I'm sure like people will get benefit from it. My friend said actually that's his favorite drug experience is Adderall, because he just feels so like in the zone, I guess, and I could kind of see that. But I just thought it was strange that like this is a guy that's like done everything, and like he said his favorite drug experience was doing Adderall.
Yeah, and that's actually the case with a lot of people. So Adderall and cocaine tend to be some of the most addictive drugs.
Yeah.
Specifically for that reason is they're feel good drugs. That's really the way they work. They just make you feel good enough that you become productive in your mind. Yeah. Everything is great.
I've had the Adderall versus cocaine debate with like some of my like foreign friends, like dads, and he was like, Adderall, it's chemical. You don't know what is in it, but cocaine is from a leaf. It's natural. And I was just like, all pills come from a leaf at some point. Like,
talking with me, I'm sure you know pretty much all these chemicals are derived from leaves.
Yeah.
Really, all leaves contain chemicals. So I've always heard that argument and sort of laughed and chuckled because I've been on the side where we turn those leaves into chemicals for market essentially. So, yeah.
And you can control like the dosage and the actual like what's going into your body like a lot better than just like rolling the freaking dice. Like I get the whole. I mean, there's a certain like psychological component with the whole kind of natural like phenomenon movement thing, but I mean, you have to like still maintain like your rationality and like common sense when you like argue against medicine.
Granted, there is a thing to be said for it, but not exactly for the reason people say. So snake poison is perfectly natural, but I wouldn't drink it. Or actually, I don't know if drinking it would kill me. I don't know if my stomach would take it, but I wouldn't inject it. Probably better way to say it.
There's a Vice documentary of the dude who like injects snake poison for like his whole life, and he's become like immune to it.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
And that's great. Great for him. But I would say that the average person
shouldn't do that.
As natural as it is.
Yeah.
But again, one of the reasons why I was actually attracted to the natural product isolation lab back in my undergrad is there's things that nature can do that we in the lab cannot. So, two branches of organic chemistry, there's isolation and there's synthesis, at its base when you're talking about these sort of drug discovery. And natural product isolation, they sort of have the upper hand when it comes to getting molecules with structures that are not possible in lab. You can't. Synthetic, you start out with very simple constituents and you add them together sort of like a building block until you get whatever drug or whatever molecule you wanted to make. As opposed to the natural products, they'll go try to find something similar enough to it and maybe modify it if they need to. And so, for example, there's rotational symmetry, right? So right and left. I don't know if you've had sort of an organic chemistry class.
Have not. I've resigned my chem class.
Okay. All right.
I'm gonna need a basic lesson on this. Make it as simple as humanly possible to explain this.
Yeah. So take your right and left hand.
All right.
Okay. There's a front and back to them.
Okay,
and
understood.
they both have a different orientation.
Yeah.
So if you place your right hand over your left hand, there's no way that you could make your right hand match your left hand. You can
No.
turn your right hand over, but now the front of your right hand will be facing backwards. So there's no way that you can overlap. This is what you call um, uh, uh, chim- chiral, chirality. Okay, meaning that there's just an intrinsic rotational symmetry to the molecule. You know, if you reverse the right hand, you would get the left hand. But there's no way you could turn the right hand around or upside down, whatever, to get your left hand's orientation.
I get it.
So when you're in the lab, at best, like really, most of the things that are being awarded now, or things being published for the synthetic chemistry, is we figured out how to make something with a 50% or 60%, 70% right-handed orientation and 30%, 40% left-handed. One of the hardest things to do is to split that.
Mm-hmm.
At best, for example, in my synthetic lab, at best we were getting 50-50, which is the average. 50 right, 50 left, and it's very hard to split it. It's a time-consuming process. Big pharma doesn't want to do it. For example, the difference between Adderall and Vyvanse is 50-50, and Adderall is like
90-10.
90-10 or 80-20, something like that. Or maybe even 100. I really don't remember the breakdown. I remember Adderall was really higher in one. With natural products, this is just one example of something that when you get it from a plant, it's 100% one way or the other. Nature has a way of making these things very specifically. There's enzymes in the human body that do things that organic chemists can only dream of. And so that's really the reasoning why there's like those two bases of or branches of the field. Yeah.
So you're saying that they should supplement each other and not just kind of like always be so like head on.
Yeah, and technically, they sort of do. A lot of the labs sort of work hand in hand. They say we'll find out, we'll find something similar enough to what you want to make, and then they'll hand it over to the synthetics. Although, in all honesty, most of the isolation labs, I mean, everyone's an organic chemist in those, so they're more than capable of doing it themselves as well. What I'm saying is that there is a tiny grain of truth to the argument that it's natural, it's from nature, so therefore it might be better for you. I say yes and no because nature has plenty of things that can kill you, just like the lab can kill you as well. I'd say again, look at snake poison. You could say that horse feces is natural, but I'm not going to be mixing it into my meals anytime soon, as natural as it is.
And then there'll be that one hippie guy that'll say that if you use horse feces as a facial mask, you'll like never get acne again.
Exactly. Yeah, and maybe there's truth to that, but I'll wait until there's more proof.
So you're saying that even if a product is natural, have like a scientific attitude towards like what you're like using.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Because the thing is, scientifically, you should be looking at everything like that, regardless of its origin. Look at it with equal skepticism. So just because something is natural doesn't necessarily mean it's intrinsically better or worse. It's just its origin. That's like saying that, one guy is more trustworthy because he came from Montana, and another one's less trustworthy because he came from Texas. I don't personally like or hate Texas. So why does it matter where someone came from? Same thing with the drugs.
Don't be racist and trust both science and nature. I think it's a good message.
Yeah.
That'd be a cool shirt if you worded it better.
I think that's a great wording as it is.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose the bulk of the message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I see it's 2:15. Do you gotta go soon?
Yeah, actually.
All right,
Thank you.
Let's wrap this up, man. You are like the smartest person I have on my contacts list. I always I had a pencil this whole time. I was taking notes. Like you just like blow my mind every time. We should do this again. We really should.
Definitely. All right. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Am I actually being recorded right now?
Yeah, you were this whole time.
Oh, okay. Well then, I hope
Don't
no
worry,
one comes after
dude,
me for it.
Your eyes were gorgeous. Like everything was good. Don't worry about it. I will.
All right then.
All right. Thanks
So
again, man.
we'll keep in touch.